This program is called Moonshot program from the Japanese government. There are 10 big goals, and I work on one of them, which is to liberate humans from all kinds of limitations, including body, brain, space, and time. That sounds like a really crazy project. Maybe even before 2050, we will see many examples where people connect the brain to some AI systems.
Do you think you'll get a brain implant in your lifetime?
Yeah, I love to. Yeah.
Wow.
If I'm developing something potentially dangerous, I think I have to try it myself.
Dr. Ryota Kanai is a neuroscientist, AI entrepreneur, and CEO of Araya, a neurotechnology company leading a Japanese government moonshot project to free humans from the limits of body and brain by 2050. He's spent 2 decades in the lab decoding how minds perceive, learn, and differ, from visual illusions and attention to social cognition. He then left academia behind to build some of the world's most advanced brain-machine interfaces and push towards conscious AI. Now his team is building an internet of brains, non-invasive links that let us pilot cybernetic avatars by thought and connect our minds directly in some form of universal consciousness. Subscribe before your neural avatar does it for you and starts flirting with the conscious AI.
What's kind of scary is the sort of implant to a kind of deeper part of the brain. We can think of changing our personality or mood by implants. So some people may be pessimistic or tend to be anxious, and then if they want to change their personality, they may be able to put some electrodes in their brain and then sort of adjust some parameters of their personality. There might be a possibility of memory augmentation. You may be able to play something like dreams directly, by directly injecting memory into your brain, or you can kind of retrieve your best memory from your past by kind of replaying.
A lot of this kind of screams like it's going to give people schizophrenia to me. Like there's just like, it's like bordering on psychosis of like when you start tampering with this, and like, where do you think the real ethical lines are? Where could this technology go that's really scary, that's not good? Where does regulation have to play an important role?
Okay, that's a good question.
Dr. Ryota Kanai, you have been tasked with the moonshot goal of liberating humans from the limitations of body, brain, space, and time by 2050. I think that was one of the most insane sentences I've ever read. What exactly does that entail?
So this program is called Moonshot program from the Japanese government. And so in this Moonshot program, there are 10 big goals, and I work on one of them, which is to liberate humans from all kinds of limitations, including body, brain, space, and time. So that sounds like a really crazy project. And when this project started, I think a lot of people in Japan were a little worried. Because it's kind of crazy that the government set this kind of goal. So so a lot of people thought there's some sort of conspiracy theory where the government tries to connect everyone directly to through the brain, and then there's always a lot of concerns about neurotechnology because people don't know what's possible. So, but from the description of this big grant in Japan, it feels like the goal is to make people sort of enable people to work from home using the brain by controlling robots and things like that. Yeah. So my part is mainly to develop a new kind of brain-computer interface, both non-invasive and invasive. And also, we are also building what we call minimally invasive BMI. That's intravascular recording of the brain activity. It's a little bit like the famous company called Synchron, which developed what they call Central. So now it's very exciting that we can bring like tiny electrodes just over the brain by using catheter, just like surgery for aneurysm and things like that. But it's a new approach, and it's less invasive compared to the typical more traditional invasive BMI. So yeah, so in that sense, like we work on a broad range of brain machine interfaces.
Could you maybe help us clarify what a invasive brain machine interface will do compared to a non-invasive interface? So an invasive is obviously an implant that's going into the brain, and non-invasive will sit on the cranium in some way. Is that right? Like, what are the differences between those devices, and what do they let the person, the user, do?
Right. So invasive brain machine interface involves surgery. So typically, like you need to open a hole in the skull and then directly put electrodes in the brain or on the surface of the brain, and that gives you very good signal to noise. So probably currently the most exciting one is the ones developed by Neuralink by Elon Musk, and so they insert like really tiny electrodes in the human brain and record neural activity. So that's the kind of best method in our current technology. But on the other hand, it's very there's of course a risk of brain damage and infection and things like that. So it's not easy to do this in healthy individuals. So
Yes.
but that's the that's invasive BMI, but on the other hand, non-invasive BMI doesn't require any surgery or anything. You can put electrodes on the scalp, or sometimes on the forehead, and so basically you can wear that without any risk. So in that sense, there's a potential for non-invasive BMI to be useful in everyday life for many people. But on the other hand, the actual information we can gather from non-invasive, for example, EEG, is very limited. So we can detect some sort of motor imagery or movement, but it's very difficult to decode anything more detailed. Sometimes people worry that their thoughts might be read by some devices, but that's very, very difficult, at least with our current technology.
I think every couple of months you get that headline, and it kind of goes a bit viral. Neuroscientist in some lab has decoded someone's thoughts. And then it goes viral, and of course the headline never really matches exactly what happened in the research paper. How close are we to that today in 2025 with the best technology in terms of decoding someone's thoughts? Does that require an invasive implant today?
Yes. So I think even with implants, it's pretty difficult at this point. But eventually, we may be able to do such things even with non-invasive methods. So in a way, our Moonshot project is about bridging the gap. So there's this huge trade-off between invasive versus non-invasive. But some of our research projects aim to achieve like really high performance decoding with non-invasive EEG. For example, so especially now the performance of like transformer and things like that using AI are getting better and better. So it seems that if we have a lot of EEG data, decoding performance keeps improving, even for non-invasive EEG. So in that sense, like for example, we cannot decode the internal thought, but when people are actually speaking, we can decode what they are saying from EEG. Of course, there's some concern about contamination of muscle activities and things like that. But even after taking care of such artifacts, it seems that we can detect some speech signals from with non-invasive EEG. So yeah, so we don't know the limit. We know it's still difficult to decode internal thought, but maybe eventually, of course, the sensor technologies is also improving. So at some point, with combination of AI and new sort of sensing technologies, we may be able to, aim for something, more impressive. Yeah, but if you see something like on the media, there's always exaggeration. And so.
Can you explain a little bit more about how this process works if you're trying to decode the thoughts of somebody? So you have an AI model that is looking at a whole bunch of EEG data, and then it is trying to find what is the signal and what is the noise. So it doesn't know what is thinking and what is one of the other 10 billion processes that is happening in the brain. And basically the problem is that it's not able to uncouple or decouple the thinking from all the other stuff the brain is doing. But with enough data and enough high resolution sensors, eventually those will be able to be decoupled and you'll be able to see exactly what signals are thinking. Would that be roughly correct?
Yeah, I think that's correct. And that will eventually happen. And also, like functional specialization of the brain. So like some areas are related to speech and some areas are related to seeing, and so that also helps. So for example, if we want to like decode actual speech, we want to target the kind of motor related areas, and so in that sense, like separating relevant signals can be partly done by targeting the right location in the brain.
Really paint this picture of what you think 2050 will look like, because that's only 25 years away from now. But of course, with the rate of technological development at the moment, which is just going exponential, like even if you compare 2020 to 2025, it's like hard to believe that was only 5 years with how much technology has progressed. As someone who's really at the forefront of all of these technologies, like what vision do you have for 2050? Like really paint it out in all the different details that you envision.
Oh, yeah. So I feel the speed of technological development is getting faster and faster. So like even within 5 years, people may be able to do a lot more than we can currently imagine. So of course, in the field of AI, people are really excited about all the amazing things current AI systems can do, but on the other hand, somehow biology is slow. So if we want to do a very simple biological neuroscience experiments, it takes a few years easily, and so there's a interesting gap there, but but I think pretty soon the current speed of progress that we see in AI will expand to other domains, including neuroscience. So yeah, and but of course, as I said, biology is slow, but once we have like really good interface for recording many neurons or like stimulating many neurons in a precise manner, eventually, acceleration will start. And so, yeah, I think that, yeah, maybe even before 2050, we will see many examples where people connect the brain to some AI systems. And I think that's maybe invasive one might be slower, but I think it's and of course we need a lot of like technological developments, but also like we need to uh, set up like a good regulation and legal systems, and we need to think about ethical aspects as well. And so those things take time, but I think once those issues are sort of addressed, I think people will eventually start using brain computer interface.
So I've been trying to drink less alcohol. And honestly, it's had a pretty big impact on my health. I'm sleeping better, I'm exercising more, and my business is growing. The data suggests that people are drinking less alcohol than ever, which overall I think is great, but I'm still looking for a little treat at the end of the workday or a hard workout. And that's where Sentia comes in. Sentia is a 0% alcohol drink that feels like you're drinking something special without any of the downsides. It's created by neuroscientists and it's designed to give you that relaxing buzz, the same kind of feeling you get from alcohol, but without the hangover, brain fog, or impact on sleep quality. And it tastes absolutely delicious. They already have a GABA red berry, which is perfect to mix with a tonic or orange, or GABA black, which is awesome with Coke. Personally, I've been really enjoying the GABA gold with Fanta lemon on ice.
That's actually genuinely delicious. Like, I'm not even play acting now, it's actually just really, really good. So you might be wondering, how does a drink with 0% alcohol give you that buzz? It almost sounds too good to be true. Well, this is the really cool neuroscience part. The secret is GABA, the brain's natural calming agent. And the different GABA flavors have different cognitive effects. Sentia's founder, Dr. David Nutt, has published over 500 independent research papers and written 34 books on neuropharmacology. What Dr. Nutt realized was that we can harness the same calming, relaxing effects from alcohol without any of the side effects. I genuinely think this could be the future of drinking. And they're also just releasing their first beer and stout, which as an Irishman I am dying to compare to Guinness. Sentia are offering my viewers 10% off their first purchase, and I genuinely could not recommend it more. I think even if you're looking to just substitute your one gin and tonic on a Tuesday with Sentia, the cumulative health benefits over time will actually be very noticeable. So check out Sentia, again, 10% off at checkout. If I connect my brain to AI, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean that my brain power is being amplified by AI? Is it similar to me typing on my keyboard into ChatGPT now, which is in some way brain communicating with AI? Like, how does it, what is the actual difference between a direct link between the actual electrical activity of the brain directly into the AI model versus me using my keyboard?
Oh, yeah. So you can type a lot faster in a way. So yeah, we are very limited in terms of the information bits we can emit per second. So even like natural language speech is relatively fast for what humans can do, but it's very slow. But on the other hand, in the brain we have more compressed information. So we don't need to. So when we have some sort of like idea of what we want to do, it's a very abstract. So we don't need to, we don't necessarily express everything in terms of language in our brain, but we have like intuitions, and we also use more multimodal interface. So when we we don't necessarily think in terms of language. We may have some sort of visual imagery, and then sort of reason using this kind of mental image. So yeah, but once we have really good high bandwidth connection between the brain and the computers, we can directly use that kind of information. So one thing we have tried and we are working on is to sort of reconstruct the imagined picture. So we ask patients to imagine some scenery or people's faces, and then we can kind of try to reconstruct what they're imagining. Of course, it's not perfect yet, but that's much faster, and it contains more information. But if we want to draw some image, it takes time, right? And but we can try to generate images we have in our mind by crafting a nice prompt. But then it takes some time. But if we can directly use our brain signals as a prompt to an AI, it will be more accurate. And so so that changes the way we communicate.
Right.
But also there's another aspect, which is to use AI as a new kind of module in the brain. So so in the brain we have many specialized regions. Some are related to speech, or maybe some are related to mathematical thinking, or some are related to hearing and understanding what other people are saying. And so they are all different specialized functions. But we may be able to add that kind of function by sort of implanting some AI chips. So for example, when we hear foreign languages, without a specialized module, we cannot encode the actual information content. But we could use some sort of AI chip for the encoder, and then connect that output from the AI directly to the brain. And then once that happens, we can keep adding new functions. And so eventually, that kind of thing might become possible. But it's a little bit like sci-fi at this point.
Yeah, it's such a strange thing to conceive of, that someday in the future I might be able to go onto an online store and download native Japanese into my brain, because I have the chip in there. I just have to go on Amazon, €15 for the entire corpus and language of Japanese, download whatever happens in my brain, and then suddenly my brain can encode, decode that information, and I can understand it. Maybe I wouldn't be able to speak it. I don't know. Maybe that's a different update. Maybe that's another package. That's such a strange reality. Isn't it? Such a strange world. Do you think people will readily adopt that kind of world? Do you think people will kind of fight back against that a little bit? I'm really curious on your what response you've gotten from people when you talk about these ideas.
I often feel I have to be a little bit careful. So, of course, I'm excited about this kind of future possibilities, but I also notice that some people may really worry about this kind of future. And there might be, it's hard to say whether everyone will like it. But I think I think the change will happen gradually. So, for example, the way we use, things like ChatGPT, it's becoming a part of our life. It's like the internet now.
Yeah.
And but we didn't expect that 5 years ago. Well, maybe some people had the vision, but I think adoption happened so quickly, and so eventually a similar thing will happen with neurotechnology, but the big gap is the difficulty of implanting electrodes. So probably it's not technically difficult, but it's but I think even if I want to implant some electrodes in my brain, I cannot just simply ask my neurosurgeon friend to implant something in my brain. I think we have to go through like a lot of like formal procedure to do that.
Do you think you'll get a brain implant in your lifetime?
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and uh, yeah, especially like if I had some accident or if I develop some some disease that that required or I don't know that can benefit from implants, but then I would love to try it. And also, I think if I'm developing something potentially dangerous, I think I have to try it myself.
Right.
Yeah.
I think everyone can agree that
Uh,
paralysis is a really good use case. Right? Like no, like paralysis is not a good thing that it exists, and Neuralink have been amazing, and market leaders have been able to implant the chips in. I think maybe probably more than two, but I know of two cases where there's the invasive chip gone all the way in, and now you see these two quadriplegic people playing chess, playing CS:GO,
yeah,
playing
yeah.
online. Like that's a huge level of autonomy restored to that person. It's a huge increase in life satisfaction, and that's amazing. I think everyone can agree with that. I think the next one they're trying to solve is vision problems. When do you envision the world getting these chips for, as you say, not necessarily as an antidote for paralysis or vision issues, but to augment some ability, like again to get Japanese or to see in infrared, or maybe I want echolocation. There's like there's an endless ingredient list of just unbelievably interesting things that you could feasibly implant into the brain. Is that world like 5 years away? Is that 10 years away? What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I think that will take maybe like at least 20 to 30 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to justify surgery for healthy people.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the application is for now for just for patients with paralysis or some impairments. So yeah, but I think but once it's like really established for medical purposes, people may start people may find potential use cases for healthy individuals. It might become a little bit like plastic surgery or something. Like it's of course it's a kind of invasive thing, but yeah, but once people recognize the usefulness of such things, and once the technology is established to be safe enough for everyone, yeah, so maybe in some countries, like neural implants may become legal, and a lot of people travel to such places and put some electrodes in their brain. Yeah, so but I think that will take many years.
We have seen how quickly society can shift, and how quickly something that was completely fringe and seen to be like no way really does get adoption quite quickly. So, once something becomes trendy, you have the neural implant influencers that are, telling people that they need to get their augmented brain chips. Like I could totally see a world in which that happens pretty quickly, especially with newer generations that are growing up where this kind of technology that seems crazy to us is less crazy to them. It's just always the world that they've lived in. Maybe they will adopt this technology really without any obstacles, because again, if it's just always been there. Like I'm thinking about my children. I don't have any children now, but I hope to have children in a few years. Like they're going to live in a world where AI is vastly superior to every human being. They may live in a world pretty quickly by the time that they're talking, speaking, where people are getting neural implants. And that's a really strange reality, and I honestly don't know how I feel about it fully from an augmentation perspective, from a curing these really deadly things. I couldn't agree more. Where do you think the real ethical lines are? Where could this technology go that's really scary, that's not good? Where does regulation have to play an important role?
Okay, that's a good question. So, like, if we think about using very much interface for treating patients with paralysis or visual impairments, that's kind of straightforward because like you're augmenting the input and output part. So yeah, so like reading out your brain activity to control robot arms and things like that. If it's useful and safe, that's okay. And also for vision, like if you can restore sight in blind people, I think that's amazing. But those things may not be necessary like really needed for people without a problem, without health, without any impairments.
Yeah.
So, but what's what's kind of scary and also something that doesn't currently like really exist is the sort of implant to like kind of deeper part of the brain. So not just the input or output interfaces. So for example, we can think of like changing our personality or mood by implants. No, so for example, no, of course, if you can treat depression by brain implants, that's very useful. Like some people with severe depression can be suicidal, so that way we can help such people. But on the other hand, there might be some sort of like a natural sort of variation, in our kind of personality and things like that. So
Right.
some people may be pessimistic or tend to be anxious, and then if they want to change their personality, they may be able to put some electrodes in their brain and then sort of adjust some parameters of their personality. And but of course, it's a little bit crazy, but I think that kind of future can be kind of that's imaginable as an extension of sort of invasive treatment for mood disorders. So yeah, I think that kind of thing might be a little bit scary. But on the other hand, no, I mentioned the plastic surgery before, but I started seeing some sort of similarity between plastic surgery and brain implants in for non-medical use, because our moonshot is about liberation from the constraints of body and things like that. Basically, our biological body, and so in a way, when we are born, we have some sort of like fixed parameters, right? So we cannot easily change the way we look, or we cannot change our intelligence, or we cannot change our personality and things like that. So we are born with certain set of parameters, and so yeah, but I think like a lot of things we worry in everyday life tend to come from like this kind of prefixed biological things. But if we can make changes to those things at will, and that's a liberation from the body and the brain. So yeah, so yeah, it's a bit scary, but
it's so interesting to me. I think you're the perfect man to talk about it with, again, at the forefront of all of this. But when you say changing personality, where would you even put an electrode? Because, you know, we kind of think of personality as this holistic brain process. You know, it probably is, you know, very complicated circuit dynamics over lots of different brain areas, lots of back and forths, lots of reciprocal loops. It seems hard to believe that you could put an implant in one area, stimulate neurons or a neural circuit somewhere deep in the brain, and that you would have any ability to control what the result of that would be. Like, it would be a real shot in the dark. Like, you, and even person to person, if you put it in, like, brains differ. So if the exact place in my brain, down into my brain stem or into my limbic system or wherever you have in mind, and you start stimulating circuits, like, is there any way that you could possibly predict what effect that would have?
Okay. Yeah. No. Of course, personality is multidimensional. So there are many parameters that controls one personality. But 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 maybe for very specific things, no, we can aim certain areas. For example, I don't know if you count it as a part of personality, but let's say like you want to treat your laziness. So
Right.
you have to work, but maybe in terms of personality traits, it may be considered as conscientiousness. So then if you want to improve your work productivity by increasing your motivation, probably places like nucleus accumbens and such motivation related areas may change your attitude. And also, like in my Moonshot project, one researcher is stimulating exactly this area, and then of course it's done in animals, but with this, in this case, it's a monkey, and a monkey is motivated to do more training. And so this is just one aspect of personality. But I think for example, I think like a lot of mood disorders are related to high level of anxiety, and then probably suppressing that might be also a possibility. So that way, like we can kind of make subtle changes to many aspects of personality. And but I think that that has some ethical concerns. Like people, it's a little bit like using like very effective drugs.
Yeah. So do you think that the way that this might possibly get to humans is that we would have to do, we'd start in mice and rats, and we'd be inserting the brain implants into them, and then like to get this, something like this, as invasive as this is, cleared in human beings, do you think that we would probably have to do research on animals that we really don't want to have to do research in? Because I don't think anyone, maybe some people would, but it seems like a huge jump for a rat to get their nucleus accumbens zapped a few times, and then they're suddenly a very conscientious rat. And then you have a line of humans that are ready to get it into their brain stem or into their nucleus accumbens deep in their brain just because of a rat study. And that I'm kind of cautious of where that research could go and what animals we would use for that research, or how could you possibly prove the safety of a device like this, right?
Oh, yeah, of course, like this kind of research may start with rodents or maybe some primates, and then but when we translate this kind of work into humans, usually it's done for the purpose of treating some some like mental illness, especially like depression. And so so that's so of course before applying this in humans, there will be like clinical trials, both for safety and effectiveness. So so it will be developed for a treatment of some actual problems people want to solve. So but I think what like a lot of people are currently expecting is once such like neurotechnology is established for treating patients, if in principle that can be done for healthy people who don't need such intervention. But if the benefit of receiving implant becomes like so big for even for healthy people, then there might be like sudden change
Right.
in the adoption of this kind of technology.
Interesting. So you're saying that the step before healthy human beings get it is not necessarily like a rodent or a less complex primate, but a very unhealthy human who was in a very not good situation, and then you're able to prove safety and efficacy through trialing it in those people, and then eventually move on. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that that's a like, typical sort of path towards like the adoption of like invasive neurotechnology
Yeah.
in society.
When you think of all of the different ways that you can augment a brain, and there are literally millions of them, right? You can in theory increase cognitive speed, so the ability for you to pattern match. You can hypothetically increase creativity. You can possibly just increase your IQ test result. You can even increase extra sensory dimensions, as we've said. So maybe you can make it so now you can see in infrared. What do you have a use case, like an augmented use case? I'm talking about for healthy human now, where you actually see people doing it, where there's actually a good enough case where, yes, we could do this, people would want it, it could be safe, it could be conceivable, and it would create a lot of benefit for people and society.
At this point, I don't see like anything that should be used in healthy people immediately.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it will take some time. But when we think about brain-computer interface or brain implants, we always think about treating paralysis and things like that. But maybe as I said, the changing mood disorder is another potential application, and also like there's a Chinese company that treats drug addiction by direct brain stimulation. So that kind of thing may be even like more powerful and potentially useful for healthy individuals. But also there might be a possibility of memory augmentation. So that's kind of like new kind of brain-computer interface. But but compared to paralysis, there would be like even like many more patients with cognitive impairments, Alzheimer's disease, and things like that. And then currently, more like standard approach is to develop drugs to delay the development of this kind of memory impairments. But if we have good interface to the hippocampus or some other parts of the brain, we may be able to sort of restore memory through potentially optical stimulation. So that's like completely like a new idea, but that might be eventually possible. But if there's a very effective implants for Alzheimer's disease, I think that there will be like mass adoption of such technology. And but also this is like so this kind of technology doesn't exist yet. But if that's that's developed, that also works as kind of like direct kind of interface between your memory and on the computer. So you may be able to play something like dreams directly, by directly injecting memory into your brain, or you can kind of retrieve your best memory from your past by kind of replaying your brain activity patterns and things like that.
Yeah, it might be the first time that we can access our subconscious, right? Because we're mostly subconscious beings, right? I mean, a lot of the things that guide our decisions, guide what decisions we make is subconscious processing. So for the first time, you might be able to get these readouts of your subconscious. I'm imagining an analytics dashboard now, and you can get little readouts of what's happening in your subconscious. A lot of this kind of screams like it's going to give people schizophrenia to me. You know, like like there's just like it's like bordering on psychosis of like when you start tampering with this, and like, do you? It's very hard to prove these things are safe over a long period of time as well, right? We don't know how these things will change neural circuits over 20, 30 years, you know, how it will impact neurodegenerative conditions. Have you thought about those kind of problems? Like how do you safety test these devices over really long timescales without just having someone do it, run the trial?
Oh, well, yeah, I think no, it needs to be kind of exploratory in the beginning. So yeah, so when the risk is high, probably people, only people who desperately need that kind of technology should try. And
Yeah,
well, of course, to test for a long-term effect, like we need to keep monitoring the patient for many years, and so like that could be for 10 years or 20 years, and so, but yeah, and then we just generate unknown long-term safety. So yeah, so I think that's maybe another reason why this kind of development uh, tends to be slow, because
right.
yeah, so like if yeah, if maybe like 20 patients or so went through this and then stayed healthy for 10 years, that gives us some idea this might be safe. But yeah, so I think we need to do this like gradually and also
Yeah,
carefully.
makes a lot of sense.
Uh,
Is it possible for neural implants to be general purpose? I'm thinking now, you said like memory augmentation, there would be an implant that would go down into my hippocampus potentially. Is it then able to have effects on my sensory cortex, on my frontal cortex, or is it stuck down in the hippocampus? Like, does it have one function kind of localized in a very specific area with circuits around it? And is it then able to, you know, impact or change causally a different region that's on like a, you know, different area of the brain?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, yeah, so it's difficult to change the location after implanting
Right. It's
electrodes.
not,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, we have to carefully decide, for which part we implant electrodes. Yeah, yeah. So eventually, um, there might, we may have to cover the whole brain and then try to record from everywhere and stimulate everywhere. So that would be kind of perfect brain machine interface. But on the other hand, it's very risky, and of course, invasive electrodes can damage the brain. So yeah, so it may not be easy to put like so many electrodes. So maybe another approach is we could target sort of multimodal region
Mm,
where you have like high level abstract information, and of course hippocampus is one of them, and also like like front parietal regions have multimodal regions. So yeah, so yeah, so now, in the field of consciousness research, there's something called global workspace theory. So, if we can identify global workspace, that's the kind of compressed information you're consciously aware of. And so, basically, we need interface just in the global workspace, and
mm,
so then we may not have to implant everywhere, but we have the richest and most relevant information from the global workspace, and then yeah, and for the rest of processing, if we understand people's intention, we don't need to decode muscle activity, or like we don't need information of detailed motor activity from the motor cortex all the time. But instead, if we understand what people want to do or what they're thinking in a very abstract terms, then we can use it for controlling robots, for example. So we may be able to find kind of a like sweet spot for the brain to decode from.
Cool. Yeah, I was going to bring up that point. Is there anywhere in the brain that's so richly connected that you can drop the implant in there and you actually can stimulate, very far-reaching circuits? Do you think that's how consciousness works? Do you think that there is a hub somewhere in the brain that is where consciousness is integrated, or that is where it lives in a sense, and that you could drop an implant into the consciousness center and then read kind of the whole intention of the brain holistically? Do you think consciousness is centralized like that?
That's a big mystery. So nobody really knows.
Yeah.
But my guess is, so no, actually, like hippocampus might be a good region because it receives kind of multimodal information, and we know we can decode like auditory information and visual information. So that's one place, and also like many high-level regions like posterior cingulate, precuneus kind of regions might have very abstract information, and also maybe language areas may be potentially relevant. So there might be like few kind of high-level hub regions, and so then from those regions we may be able to decode multimodal information. Actually, we have this one is not with implant, but with functional MRI. We've been looking at the activation patterns in the so-called dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and that's also like high-level multimodal region. And then from that region, we can decode kind of like a visual scene people are seeing, and also kind of auditory language information. When people are watching some sort of like movie. So so some regions tend to contain like information from many different brain regions. So
Right.
So I think those are the right target.
Interesting. Tell me about this idea of the Internet of Brains.
Right. Okay. So when I made a proposal for this Moonshot program, I had a kind of range of ideas. So in a way, they want us to do something like futuristic. They also wanted to have practical applications. So, of course, we work on practical brain-computer interface, but in principle, if we have like really good input and output interface for the brain, we should be able to directly communicate between brains. So I tend to sort of see the brain as encoders and decoders, just like many AI systems. And so when we communicate, like we take information from the environment and then represent them in some sort of abstract form. So it's like a internal thought. And then when we want to tell other people what we are thinking, like we need to decode that to a language, and then then also change that to some sort of like a motor command to move your mouth and things like that. And then the other person receives that auditory information and then re-encodes that information to form the thought in the second brain. So but if we can directly use this kind of latent information, maybe something like information in our global workspace, then we can sort of use that information or that translate that information directly to another brain's kind of internal latent space. And so that way, we should be able to do like brain to brain communication. So that's something I really wanted to do, and also we are kind of already doing that with some like animals, where we can use optogenetics. So we record from like many neurons one mouse and then stimulate another mouse's brain, but in a similar pattern. And then we found it's possible to sort of transfer the kind of sensory information between different animals. And so technically it is possible. And yeah, but I think that kind of like brain to brain communication like really changed the way we think about the mind. So this is more motivated by my interest in consciousness. So there's a anecdotal report that some twin sisters like who were kind of like conjoined through the brain, so through I think it's through the thalamus. So they were born with like connected brains, and but they seem to have like separate consciousness, but they seem to be able to share experience. So that, but I think that's like really now. Of course, it's a very rare event, so it doesn't happen naturally so often. But if we can directly connect brains with other brains directly, then like we may be able to understand what other people are feeling. So we can ask whether what kind of qualia other people have. And yeah, so I think a lot of like philosophical debate about consciousness is this kind of privacy of subjective experience. So
Right.
Nobody can say for sure that other people have conscious experience, but that's also true for AI consciousness. So it seems like logically it's impossible to know or prove that other people or animals or AI systems have conscious experience. But this the conjoined twin story made me think maybe if we connect brains, or if we connect our brain to AI, we may be able to feel what they're actually feeling directly. And so yes,
Wow.
so that's something I've been intrigued by.
Yeah, I mean, my head is spinning with the amount of things that I want to ask you based on that. There's also lots of funny aspects of like intrusive thoughts, right? When people are talking to each other, they might have an intrusive thought that they don't believe necessarily, but it emerges in their mind. I think we all have these intrusive thoughts that we don't know where they come from, and they don't represent what we believe in any way, but they come into our consciousness and then we shove them away. Like how will we be able to control what we want to communicate in this internet of brains, in this swath of chaotic brain activity and intrusive thoughts and jealousies and just all of the human elements that we don't vocalize in speech or type to each other on Slack or anything else. We have to open the gateway between two brains. I think we have to have an incredibly high level idea of what kind of information we want to flow between the brains, right? Because necessarily one person might not want to just tell the other person without knowing their entire life story, all of their traumas, all of their insecurities, all their things that they struggle with. And that means that we have to tease apart all of those things in some way. Are these kind of problems that you think about?
Yeah. I think, I think about this kind of problem, but at least it's very hypothetical at this point because we don't have the technology. But if once it becomes possible to connect different brains, we may be able to like retrieve information from their memory, and so there's like a serious issue of mental privacy, and
Yes.
yeah, that's a completely new problem. Yeah.
From a Do you have like a consumer vision for this as well? From a research and science aspect, there's so many amazing things that we could learn. But like, what's the consumer application of this? Do you envision, it's a Thursday evening, I finish work, I'm putting my Araya EEG headset
Uh,
on with my Apple Vision Pro
uh, uh,
12, and then I'm going into this digital world, and I think you talk about cybernetic avatars, and
uh,
it's reading all of my brain signals and even my emotions so that my avatar displays the same
uh,
level of emotions. Is
uh,
this the kind of world on a consumer level that you envision in 20 years? How people are going to, once it gets real mass adoption and people have, a VR headset and an EEG helmet
uh,
in the same way that they have a laptop. And it's just how they watch sport. It's how they play video games. It's how they, do anything in the digital universe. I mean, really what Mark Zuckerberg has been trying to do with the
uh,
metaverse. Is this
uh.
sort of along the same lines?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, we want to find like applications in the consumer space, and but the problem is what we can do with non-invasive EEG is very limited. So we don't
Yeah.
have enough information to do like all the fancy things we could potentially do. So in that sense, we need to like really find the market where people want to use it, and yeah, so that's the that's a current challenge, and we are currently uh, looking for applications in entertainment, especially computer games. So so currently, people expect that they can move like a lot of avatars at will, like freely using uh, BMI, but that's unfortunately not true yet. And but on the other hand, it's like really exciting to use like EEG to control characters in computer games. And
Right.
yeah, so actually, like we are currently having some sort of like the space inside Osaka Expo happening right now. And there, a lot of people come and experience BMI computer games. So we kind of simplified the game, Fortnite, and it's just a kind of like racing game kind of thing. And then, the character moves faster when they can do the kind of good mental imagery of movement. And so so that's a kind of it's kind of like toy kind of situation, but I think what's important is to establish some sort of platform where we can collect EEG signals from many people. So uh, even now, like some people buy consumer EEG devices and then try them out, and but in terms of the actual number of users, it's very small market. So so maybe in an early phase, we want to find like really interesting like applications in entertainment, and then once many people started using it, we may be able to find kind of like new ways to use such signals. And also, as I mentioned, we can now decode overt speech from EEG. So that means it seems like there's some sort of scaling law. So like typically in university lab, we may collect a few tens of hours of EEG data. But if we have let's say the 10,000 hours of data, it seems like a AI decoder gets better and better. So um, yeah, so so once like simple consumer EEG devices are widespread, then there will be like a lot of data collection, and then that
Right.
may change the capability of AI decoder.
Interesting. So we just need more EEG data to train better and better models to get better and better at deciphering the information within those signals. I've actually been
Yep.
using a Muse headband, so it's an EEG headband for
Yep.
neurofeedback meditation. Trying it out, it has like 3 sensors here and 2 at the back, and
Yep.
I've been doing this neurofeedback meditation where if my mind is calm, the rain is very calm and the birds are chirping, and then when my brain gets chaotic, the rain starts and the thunderstorms and everything. It's been a fun experience. I think that technology, as you say, still has way to come before it really gets sort of mass adoption. Do you think that invasive EEG is limited, or like is just very limited by the amount of data that you can collect? Or hypothetically, with the really, really powerful AI models, what do you think are the full capabilities of just having, an EEG headband that you can put on? Because I think, of course, that's going to be a lot more consumer friendly than anything that you need to undergo surgery for. Like if there's a good use case for an EEG headband that's non-invasive, I could definitely see people doing that. I could definitely see people picking it up and playing their video games in it. Like, do you think that there is a huge untapped potential in these non-invasive devices?
Yeah, I think so. We just don't know what works best, but
Yeah.
I think probably this part is not just about technology, but I think finding a nice user experience, and so we need to find a way to engage users.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, when we talk about like sci-fi, like futuristic VCI applications, we expect a bit too much, but even non-invasive EEG is good for detecting the changes, like global changes, like like if you're getting sleepy or tired or somehow if you're a musician or a sport player, on some days you perform well, some days not, and then that kind of thing may be predicted by the kind of global brain
Interesting.
activity. So I think maybe for those things you may not need like very precise brain activity measurements, but what you can measure with like simple devices may be sufficient for useful applications.
Yeah. Very cool. So fascinating. And this has been so interesting. How another topic I really wanted to talk to you about was conscious AI. Big hot topic at the moment. I know you're the lead editor of the AI and Consciousness Journal, so maybe not a single man on earth better to speak to, man or woman to speak to on this topic. How should we think about building conscious AI machines? I presume you think it's possible. I know there are people that don't think it's possible, but how should we think about this?
Okay, so I think there are two aspects in building conscious AI. So one is about how to implement ideas of consciousness research into AI. So that's more practical thing. So maybe it's related to the so-called access consciousness in philosophy of mind. The other aspect is how to prove that AI has conscious experience. So that's more related to the hard problem. So I think sometimes people conflate these two different questions. So I think we should like really try to create conscious AI for the purpose of sort of refining concepts in consciousness research. So, for example, there are many like theories of consciousness, for example, global workspace theory or the predictive coding, and there are many like functional theories of consciousness. But on the other hand, with current sort of AI architecture, basically you can implement like all those things discussed in consciousness research in principle. So if you need higher order representation, you can also think about how to implement that in current AI architecture, and you can also think about how to implement global workspace with current AI architecture. And so, of course, people can ask whether that means that makes such systems actually conscious. No, we don't know. That's a separate question. But a lot of times, like many existing ideas in consciousness research come from philosophy or psychology or cognitive science, and they are very high level descriptions. And so, so in their own fields, those concepts like global workspace or higher order representation kind of make sense. But if we need to implement them, we need to be even more specific, and we need to think about or at least we need to be able to judge whether a certain architecture has a global workspace or a high order representation. And so even like current series of consciousness are a bit too vague to make that kind of judgment.
Right.
So in that sense, like by trying to implement such ideas in AI, we can ask whether we have the right definition for those terms. And so in a way, this is a way to challenge existing ideas, and then we try to refine and improve the theories of consciousness. So that's one thing. But also as a side effect, we may be able to find a kind of new architecture for AI context. So for example, we have been thinking about implementing global workspace, and that seems to be closely related to the problem of integrating like many specialized modules as a coherent system in AI. And also that's kind of related to developing artificial general intelligence. You want to combine many specialized modules to solve kind of general problem. So there's a close link between implementing ideas from consciousness research and then improving the current AI architecture. So that's kind of functional aspect of developing conscious AI. So
Right.
that's I think when we say okay, we are trying to develop conscious AI, that may sound like some sort of crazy thing, and actually like there are a lot of crazy people who make this kind of claim. But but I take this as a kind of like academic practice, and
Yes.
we try to improve the both consciousness research and AI architecture.
Yeah. You're really looking at this as ways of learning more about consciousness as it relates to human beings, and hopefully conscious AI will help unravel those stubborn mysteries of consciousness, and then who knows what the human application for that will be. We've talked about mood disorders thing and the rest, of how really understanding consciousness could fit into those and solve those really big problems that we have in society. It's an interesting approach. When you say that you're trying to integrate something like the global workspace theory into AI, when you say AI, are you talking about large language models? Is the AI that you're trying to integrate into, does it look something like ChatGPT, like a really large language model, a really big corpus of language, and then you're trying to give it this global workspace theory, or is this a completely separate AI architecture?
So we try many different things. So for example, like for multimodal integration, like we can try to combine like vision transformer with a simple language model. Usually like for research purpose of this kind, it's not very convenient to use like real large language models because they can be expensive. But to test some ideas, it's very common to combine like vision models and language models, for example.
Interesting. It's so strange. It's so strange. I was speaking to Dr. Mark Soms recently. I loved our conversation, and he is trying to maybe tackle conscious AI from a different direction. He's thinking, I think, more along the lines of what the function of consciousness is in humans, as in what does it imbue us with, and then he's trying to maybe figure out how to imbue that in a machine. So he's saying, how do we make an AI machine, an AI system that is controlling its own life in a way? Because we can think of consciousness as a control system for the human body. Human consciousness is a control system for the human body. So he's thinking about how do we make an AI where part of its functioning is actually in control of its energy supply or something like that. So then that, and how from that you might be able to get a sense of agency, a sense of subjectivity. I think some of the most common sort of ideas about what consciousness is from Thomas Nagel as like something that it is like to be that organism. But you're maybe not thinking about it directly in that line. You're thinking it in a really academic sense of how do we integrate the theories of consciousness that we have today, mathematical theories, non-mathematical theories, into AI. Do you see them as separate approaches, or are they kind of do they?
Yeah. From what you described, I may have some like similar thoughts. So I also think about the relationship between physical dynamical systems, life, and mind or consciousness. So I think they are all connected, and so I also have the view that consciousness comes from the ability to internally simulate. So you have a world model, and then use a world model to engage with counterfactual reasoning. So so like in humans and animals, like a lot of actions are triggered like a reflex. So you don't need to have like any like mental elaboration, but when we need to sort of disconnect the link between sensory input and motor response, and if you want to insert something in between, like short-term memory or sort of reasoning, you need some sort of conscious thought, at least in humans, and there are many empirical research showing that. So in that sense, I'm thinking the one key function of consciousness is the ability to use internal world models to simulate possible future state. So that gives us the ability to sort of learn or make plans for the future, new situations. So it's a signature of intelligence as well. And so but to do that, it's very important to have world models, and there's a connection between having a world model and being a self-preserving life. So there has been like a lot of like discussion about especially in the context of like Carl Friedman's free energy principle. So to exist, the system needs to have a model of the environment so that they can sort of react to the changes in the environment in an effective way. And so that means, in my thoughts, like so that's a kind of like a natural pressure to have a model of the world. And then once you have the model of the world, you can use it offline, not just making the immediate prediction, but you can use that model as a simulator, and then that's a functional advantage of having that thing. So in that sense, like I think like a lot of living organisms have some level of consciousness in that sense, in terms of this ability to simulate. So I think there's like a strong connection between like life and consciousness and intelligence. People tend to separate them, and then of course they're conceptually different things, but I think there's a kind of physical constraint that connect them together.
So how do you get from the large language models we have today to conscious AI. Under this idea of simulating its world and having a world model, is it a stretch to say that large language models in some way do have models of the world because of these mappings of language that they've created? You know, you can ask you can ask it to explain a concept in a different way and then explain it in a different way, and it is able to do that. So it does have these sort of abstract models and mappings of what very complex sentences can mean, and they can represent those sentences in different ways. Does that mean that it is modeling? This is strictly on a language sense, but you are able to capture a lot in language. You know, is there a sense that large language models are modeling the world today through language? Or is it a very different thing that you're speaking about?
Well, I think current large language models have the world models in the language sense. So I think that might be very different from our world models, but I think there are still world models. So in that sense, yeah. So if having a world model is a crucial ingredient of being conscious, maybe large language models are a little bit conscious, but of course, it's a controversial claim. But
Yes.
I think no, there's a logical possibility, and we cannot, completely deny that possibility either.
So then, what do you think? What research are you doing at the moment to try and push this forward? How are you trying to integrate AI models with this ability to internally simulate, maybe this idea connected to life and controlling its own energy systems? Like what specific projects do you have in line at the moment to try and tackle these big questions?
Oh, that's a good question. We have been doing several things. So one is to find a mathematical definition of what it means to have a model. So it's a separate question from the question of consciousness. But if having a model is the real important aspect of consciousness, we need to be able to tell whether certain AI systems or some alien's brain have a model. So yeah, so this part of research tends to be kind of very abstract and theoretical, but I have been sort of proposing the concept called universality. So it could be about consciousness, but it could be also about having a model. So universality is the kind of property of a theory which is applicable to any physical system. So so if we say having prefrontal cortex is the kind of key thing for being conscious, then we cannot really say whether AI systems have prefrontal cortex or not. So that's not it's not a universal theory, but if we have a theory that says this if this computation happens, it's conscious, then that kind of concept is applicable to many physical systems. And so I feel like we need to mathematically define the definition of consciousness so that that definition is applicable to AI and brain and any physical dynamical system. So I'm kind of looking for that kind of universal property in theories of consciousness. And actually, IIT, Integrated Information Theory, is really a great example. So, and of course, IIT is very hard to compute. So in that sense, we may not be able to compute phi in large language models, but in principle, it will tell us whether large language models have this kind of consciousness and how much consciousness. So I don't know. I don't claim IIT is correct, but but at least I think many other theories try to have such precise definitions so that their criteria can be applicable to many non-brain systems.
Yes. So you're thinking of this as your kind of Turing test, that if you can build a mathematical description of experience or qualia, that you might be able to apply this mathematical description to a model that people might think is conscious in a weird way. And then we might be able to learn something about what kind of experience the machine is having. Because I think there's no doubt it's going to be a very different experience than what me and you are having. We have arms, we have eyes, we have legs, nose. The machine doesn't have those things. So its experience is going to be extremely different, very different, and not imaginable for us. But by applying that mathematical description, if we can get something that works for humans, then we might be able to learn something fundamental about the kind and the type of experience that the machine is having. Is that sort of what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially since you mentioned types of experience, that's something like we are currently focusing on. So we are trying to connect sort of different types of qualia to different types of mathematical structure. So now, for example, like in our visual experience, vision feels like vision, and it's very different from what sound feel like. So there's a clear distinction between different sensory modalities, and so now we are proposing that this comes from the differences in terms of symmetry structure in neural networks. So so for example, in vision, seeing someone's face on the right half of the visual field or left half of visual fields doesn't matter, right? So you see the same face. So that means our visual cortex handles different inputs as the same thing. So that's kind of that's called invariance. And then there's a related concept called equivariance. And so equivariances are characterized by specific kind of symmetry. So for both for artificial neural networks and biological neural networks, we can talk about this network has this kind of symmetry or that kind of symmetry, and then there are many types of symmetries characterized by types of group, as in mathematical group theory. And so for vision, we think some types of symmetries characterize visual experience, and they are very distinct from auditory experience. So yeah, it's a little bit complicated thing
It's
to
a little
explain.
bit. I think
first,
I think we're not going to have the time, or I don't know if I have the brain power to understand mathematical group theory. But is a way to think about it as geometry? Is geometry sort of a way that the geometry of neurons? Is that sort of a way that maybe the listener can take away that that's sort of what you mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so you can think of it as kind of like a network structure or shape of the network. So in that sense, it's a geometry.
Cool.
So and it's also related to IIT. So basically, the structure of information corresponds to type of qualities, but we are developing mathematics to characterize that.
So incredibly cool, Ryota. I've so many questions, and I'm learning so much. I'm having such a good time. I'll have to have you on for a round 2 because there's just so many questions here that I'd love to ask you. You're such an interesting man. We're running out of time though, so we'll finish on 1 or 2 quick questions. If you had to make a prediction, what year are we going to have conscious AI?
Maybe it might happen gradually, but maybe within 2 years or so, a lot of people think, okay, this might have consciousness and things like that. Of course, maybe it's like animal consciousness. We all believe that dogs and cats have a consciousness. And of course, it's philosophically almost impossible to prove that they have consciousness like ours. But I think we have all the good reasons to believe that they are conscious. And similar things may happen to AI and large language models at some point.
2 years, wow. And do you think a research paper will come out and it will be like, oh, there it is, that's it solved? Or will it just be, as you say, it could be gradual? So this is sort of just a societal, like, okay, this seems very, like, it's more on a humanistic basis that it seems conscious in the same way as you say, like, our dog feels conscious. Like, will we prove it outright, or will it actually be just this kind of gradual societal, like, okay, this thing really, really seems conscious now?
Yeah, I think it's going to be gradual, and it's a cultural thing. So I think it will be always very hard to have definitive answers to consciousness questions. But my feeling is probably the hard problem is not resolved by one great theory or anything. But maybe it just kind of disappears, like melts away gradually, and then at some point people will stop worrying about it.
Yeah, I was speaking to a philosopher of mind, David Papineau, and his position is that the hard problem of consciousness isn't a problem at all. We've just made a mountain out of a molehill by saying it's a huge hard problem, but it's really just what the integration feels like. And I sort of think there's some weight to that. Maybe there isn't such a big mystical stubborn problem here. That's just what it is. I think there's some value to that. This has been so much fun. Last question. What future technology are you absolutely most excited about in the next 5, 10? Zoom forward as long as you want. Do you have a very specific use case of a technology that just, like, that is what motivates you to get up in the morning, that motivates you to work hard? Like, what's the really, really exciting thing for you?
Yeah. Okay, it's hard to pick just one thing.
Yeah,
but
you're working on a lot.
I'm currently like really excited about the idea of developing optical brain-computer interface. So, using optogenetic, so then we will have like very high precision input to the brain, and that, of course, it may not have like immediate commercial impact, but I think it's been done in research. But if we think about using that for as a kind of new interface for the connection between the brain and computers, that may be an exciting thing. We may be able to, so I mentioned about like restoring memory and things like that. So I think that kind of possibility is like really exciting.
Amazing. Ryota, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the conversation. This has been an enormous amount of fun. You're doing so many cool things at the moment that it's basically impossible to know what questions to ask you. There's so many things around embodiment that I wanted to speak on, dive deeper into how we create robots with emotions. I was listening to one of your chief researchers talking about how to give emotions to robots. Such an interesting area. I really will have to have you on for round 2 because it's just, you're too interesting a man to have on one podcast. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute joy.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, thank you very much for the great conversation.
If you made it this far, then you must at least partially be interested in brain science. And who can blame you? It is the most interesting topic in the world. Twice per week, I talk to the most amazing neuroscientists in the entire world. So if you're interested, then subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below who you'd like me to speak to next. And thank you so much for your ongoing support.